I speak to hundreds of franchise buyers every single month, and I've watched people with money, passion, and great intentions fail. Not because the system didn't work, but because they weren't actually ready before they signed. As Benjamin Franklin once said, failing to plan is planning to fail. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 5 non negotiable questions you must ask yourself before you buy a franchise so you can go in clear headed and set yourself up to win from day one. Let's get into it. Okay, so picture this for a second. You're about to have the birth of your first child. Congratulations. It's a couple of months away. What do you start to do? You start to get the baby clothes ready, the room ready, the cottage for where the baby's going to sleep. You make sure that all the corners in the house are blocked off. There's no sharp edges. You make sure that there's gates on the floor so the baby can't go anywhere. You're starting to prepare your life for the baby. And guess what? Buying a franchise is no different. You should be preparing your life around this franchise. Your day-to-day schedule, your week, your year should be getting prepared around this franchise. But unfortunately, people come into a franchise with minimal preparation, even though their lives are about to change completely. So in this video, I'm going to be covering 5 non-negotiable questions that you need to ask yourself and or your significant other before you sign the dotted line. Let's get into it. Question number 1, do you have working capital aside? Really, really important. A minimum of $5,000. We recommend all of our franchisees have a minimum of $5,000 aside as working capital, because the reality is when you're starting up a franchise, it takes time to build a customer base. It takes time to build consistent and recurring revenue. And there might be some day-to-day expenses that pop up that you need to cover. So you've got to have working capital aside, tucked in case there's any of those expenses that pop up. And I'll give you a great example. We had a franchisee join our network. Now, she's no longer part of the network. I didn't know this at the time, but she pretty much put her entire life savings into this franchise, and she took out a loan as well. So she had 0 working capital available for the franchise. And she was very stressed out, and she really wanted the business to perform, and there was a lot of stress and strain on the business to perform very quickly because it was her get out of free jail card out of debt. And we now later realized from that experience that, okay, franchisees got to have some working capital aside to give room, breathing space for the business to grow. Because believe me, there's nothing more stressful when you've just started a business and you're really trying to squeeze it to perform and you're getting frustrated and upset because you got bills to pay, right? So you got to give it, you got to make sure you've got some working capital aside. That's the first question to ask yourself. Let's move to question number 2. Question number 2, are you prepared to take out no wage from the company for the first 12 months? Yes, you heard it. No wage for the first 12 months. Again, it's going back to the first point that I said. A business takes time to build up. And unfortunately, social media has distorted that, and people now got this fake illusion that when they become a business owner, the profits are going to start rolling in and they can pay themselves a huge amount of wage. That's social media to blame. But what you need to understand, and I'm telling you this as a first-hand business owner, it takes time to build up a business and build up a franchise. It takes time to build up the customer base, to get the word out, to do your local area marketing. All of that takes time. And you need to be patient and not just draw out profits straight away from the company to pay yourself a wage. I like to call it slaughtering the goose of the company. If the goose lays the profit, you slaughter the goose that's giving you the profits. You need to be able to reinvest the profits back in the company. And I'll give you a really good example. We have potential franchise buyers come down to our flagship location in Riverwood in Sydney. Now, I've got 450 members per week that does that location. And what I say to these franchise buyers, because they're sitting there on the chair, they're watching the classes, they see 20 kids and they see another 20 kids getting ready for the next class, and I can see their eyes lighting up. My God, this is going to be me. And I say to them this, I say, hey, what you're seeing right now is 5 years of hard work in about a 30-minute class. And they say to me, well, what do you mean? I said, you've heard of the tip of the iceberg analogy, right? The tip of the iceberg analogy. You weren't here 5 years ago when I had only 5 kids in my first class. I had 6 kids in my first class. It was only me doing everything. You're looking at 5 years in the making, the tip of the iceberg, and it's my job as a franchisor to make sure that I've aligned my franchisees' expectations. Because if I say to them, hey, see this, 450 kids per class, you can get this as soon as you sign up as a franchise within the first 6 months. What problems do you reckon I'll be facing after 6 months when they don't have 450 kids in their program? So it's very important that the franchisor aligns expectations with the franchisee. But more importantly, question number 2, you need to be comfortable not paying yourself a wage at least for the first 12 months. And FYI, I didn't pay myself a wage for the first 2 years. Every single dollar that I earned, I reinvested back in the business. Yes, now I'm paying myself a wage, but I'm talking from first-hand experience. It all went back into the business. Let's move on to the third question that you need to ask yourself. Hey guys, I've created a franchise success blueprint. It's a PDF that has a ton of information about our franchise. It's also got a pretty cool case study from one of our franchisees. Click the link below to access it. I hope you enjoy. Question number 3, and this I would say is probably the most important question to ask yourself out of the 5. If you're coming into a franchise, do you have the support and backing of your significant other? This is critical. And I remember I had a discovery call with someone. It was a gentleman, male. He was excited to come into this franchise. I love it. I can't wait. I just, running a basketball franchise, it's the dream for me. But he said, I don't know how my wife is going to handle it. I said, look, have a discussion with your wife and let's talk about it later. Called him a week later and there was turmoil happening in the house. The wife was kind of conservative. She wasn't ready to invest into a new business and he wanted this. And I can tell on the phone that there was friction happening within the household. And nothing worse, there is nothing worse than coming into a franchise when both parties aren't aligned. And we actually didn't continue with the franchise because I didn't want him coming in when his wife isn't supportive of the franchise. So this is really important. You need to make sure that your significant other, whether it's a business partner, your wife, your husband, your spouse, whoever, is fond of you coming into this business. And I'm going to read out a study that might scare you a little bit. Okay, you're listening. A meta-analysis of 60 studies across 3,700 entrepreneurs, that's a lot of entrepreneurs, found that partner support, both emotional and financial, directly impacts entrepreneur success and profitability. Entrepreneurs who are single, divorced, or separated consistently reported lower profitability and lower revenue than those with a supportive partner. So, it's not far-fetched to say that if you have a supportive partner coming into the franchise, you will be more profitable. So that is so important. Make sure your significant other is on the same page. And just an FYI, all my discovery calls and all my business presentation, I make sure both people are there. Because if you're coming into a franchise and you're going to invest a lot of your hard-earned dollars, make sure both are on the same page. Let's move to the 4th question to ask yourself. Okay, here it is. Question number 5, the 5th non-negotiable question that you need to ask yourself before you purchase a franchise. Can you follow a system? Now that might sound simple in theory, but when you go into a franchise, believe me, it's not. As people say, a franchise is a system. It's an established model. Somebody has done the hard work, figured out what works, and has put it into a procedure. And you as a franchisee need to be able to follow the system. Now, is the system perfect? No. There's always ways that a franchise brand can improve their systems. Our franchisees are giving us advice all the time on how we can improve our system. But you need to be able to follow the system. And unfortunately, a lot of franchises, they come into the network and they say, you know what, I don't like this. I want to do it my way. Is this how they do it? I want to do my way. I want to go through this supplier. If this is a supplier for marketing, I've got my friend Bob Jane that can do marketing. I want to go with them instead. And this can become a really big friction point in a franchise. And I'll give you a really good example just to illustrate this. Let's say you're coming up to me. Let's say I'm a professional cake specialist. And you come up to me, you've got a special event, and you say, Emile, can you really show me how to bake a cake? And I look at you and I say, look, I don't have any time. Emile, I'll pay you any fee. Just please show me how to bake a cake. Okay, pay me $5,000 and I'll show you the recipe that I've used to cook over 5,000 cakes. Oh my God, here you go. Here's the $5,000. I say, here's the exact recipe that I've used 5,000 times that's helped me create and bake the perfect cake. You get that recipe, you go home, you say, okay, let's look at Emile's recipe. Step number 1, 200 grams of flour. I don't want that much. I want to do 100 grams of flour. Step number 2, you need this exact type of butter. No, I don't have that butter. It's too expensive. I'm going to use this one in my fridge. Step number 3, preheat the oven at 300 degrees. I don't really have time, so I'm just going to preheat it at 200 degrees for only a couple of minutes. And then you bake the cake and you find out, oh my God, this cake isn't good. It's breaking apart. What? And you come back to me and say, hey, this cake is breaking apart. And I say, did you follow all the steps? No, I did this. Well, the point and the message is a franchise has a way of doing things, has a procedure, and it has a system. You need to be okay and comfortable following that procedure. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it. These are the 5 non-negotiable questions that you need to ask yourself before you come into a franchise. Drop a comment below. Tell me which question that you struggled with. Which question did you have a bit of tension with? Drop it below and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.